What's up, everybody, and welcome to our third installment of the World Cup preview series. Today, we are talking about the host nation, Qatar, as the third team going in alphabetical order in Group A. Of course, this is Qatar's first ever appearance in a World Cup. They are getting to participate because Qatar was awarded the 2022 World Cup by FIFA. Therefore, the host nation automatically qualifies. The home team always gets to participate, so Qatar is going to be in the World Cup for the very first time. Because Qatar knew they would be participating so early, they were able to get a couple invitations to some different tournaments around the world and sort of become guest members of different qualifying regions to sort of prepare themselves and get some different experiences against different teams. So they put in three major tournaments since the 2018 World Cup I want to highlight here, starting with the 2019 Asian Cup. Qatar is part of the Asian qualifying group. We're going to touch on that again in a little bit. So this was not an exception, sort of a guest invite. This was just Qatar participating as a member of the Asian qualifying region. And Qatar actually won the 2019 Asian Cup, beating Japan, United Arab Emirates, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia on the way, including in addition to some other teams. Of course, you're going to see Japan, you're going to see South Korea, you're going to see Saudi Arabia at this World Cup. Qatar beat all of them in 2019 and did so in convincing fashion. Qatar scored 19 goals in that tournament, only conceded one. That was in the final, a 3-1 win over Japan. So incredibly impressive performance. And I say this, and we're going to continue to emphasize this, to point out that this team is no joke. I very much feel they would have been right there, possibly qualifying, had they not gotten an automatic bid. This team has really, really improved over the past 3-4 years, and you're seeing it in these tournaments. After the Asian Cup, they went to the 2019 Copa America in South America. Did not get out of the group stage, had a 2-2 draw with Paraguay, a 1-0 loss to Colombia, 2-0 loss to Argentina. Obviously not the best results in the world, but again, competitive performances that are doing nothing but raising Qatar's stock on the world stage and getting these players experience at the highest level. And then you had the 2021 Gold Cup. Drew Panama, beat Grenada and Honduras in the group stage to get to the knockout stage, where they beat El Salvador in the quarterfinals before losing to the United States by a score of 1-0 in the semis. This, if you remember, was not a team for the United States. This was very much sort of a C team. Nonetheless, Qatar was a difficult out, performed well again in that tournament. Two key players to highlight here, both attack-minded. These are your two primary goal scorers, creative forces. First is Almoez Ali from Al Duhail in the Qatari Stars League. A vast majority of these Qatari players are based in their domestic league. Ali, 14 goals in those three tournaments I just talked about, and then scored another 6 goals in the 8 Asian qualifying games Qatar played as a guest to kind of help them tune up for this World Cup. Of course, they didn't have to qualify for it, but they were still participating in part of the qualifying stage for that Asian region I mentioned they belong to just get another team in there, get them some practice and sort of more ways for this team to get used to each other and experiment and play in higher intensity matches heading into the World Cup. So Ali, really, really great on the biggest stages for this team. The other guy is Akram Afif. He plays for Al Sadd. This is the powerhouse in the Qatar Stars League. This is the team, if you remember, Xavi was the manager of before he left for Barcelona. Yeah, it's these guys. Afif had 10 assists at the Asian Cup when Qatar won in 2019, and last season in the Qatar Stars League for Al Sadd, 14 goals, 17 assists, most goal contributions in the league. He is one of the very, very best, if not the best players in that league. Very, very consistent year in, year out. So those are your two players in terms of attacking weapons and arguably the two most talented players Qatar are going to be bringing to the World Cup. Some other things to highlight about this team. I mentioned those 8 Asian qualifying games they played. It was 7 wins and a draw. Now, this was a preliminary stage, so it was not the finals, which means you weren't playing the teams that ended up qualifying, your Australias, your Saudi Arabias, your Japans. This was lower level opposition, but once again, a very, very good showing for Qatar. This team is ranked 49th in the world in FIFA's world rankings, which is certainly at the very, very low end of the teams headed to this World Cup, but not some sort of outlier, sort of out of the realm of reason. They they really are a threat. And again, would not have been surprised at all had they been able to qualify if they had to. They were going to be right on that border, looking at sort of where your UAEs, your Australias ended up. I firmly believe that. And then the other part of this is, of course, the benefits of being the host nation. Since 1986, when the World Cup went to the format we know today for good, every single host nation, except South Africa, has reached the knockout stage. They've all gotten out of their groups. And South Africa missed out on goal difference. They had the same amount of points to get in there and advance, just goal difference didn't go their way, so they ended up third in their group. The point being, every host nation has performed well in this setup. 7 of those teams made the quarterfinals, 4 of them made the semifinals. And of course, there is a little bit of a different context here because this is not a traditional power. This is not a team that was guaranteed to make it or expected to make it had they not gotten to host the event. Again, they very well may have, but this is not your Italy's, your France's, South Korea, Japan when they hosted in 2002, Germany, Brazil, right? You can go through the list of some of these teams, and this is much closer to South Africa than it is to some of these other situations where it's teams you expect to qualify, so it's not shocking when a Germany and Italy gets to a quarterfinal or semifinal at home. But once again, I'm pointing to South Korea in 2002 as an example of what happens when you get a home crowd behind you and how much of an impact that can have. And South Africa had a really good showing in 2010. I mentioned, they just missed getting out of their group, but still a very, very good performance. There is no reason to dismiss this Qatar team and believe they're going to get walked all over. They're going to show up, and I firmly believe they're going to put on a good showing and prove they belong at this level. The question is, can they do any more than that? And especially in such a balanced group, which is basically every group at this World Cup, but specifically Group A, it's asking a lot to find a way to outperform 2 of those other 3 teams over a 3-game stretch. Because even if you get a win or you catch a break somewhere in the results, just getting ahead of one of those teams obviously isn't going to be enough. And so you're looking at, theoretically, having to outperform both Ecuador and Senegal. Or something has to happen with the Netherlands in there. So that's ultimately where I am on this team in terms of expectations. They should have a good showing, do themselves justice, prove they belong, and be competitive. Anything more than that, to me, is asking too much. But I go back to sort of where I started this. This team is no joke. It is not out of the realm of possibility at all. They find a way to eke out a win, get a draw, are sitting there on 4 points, are defensively sound, and find a way to get through on goal difference or something. Wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world. Because when you look from a sort of pedigree or just without context at this, you're looking at that group and you're looking at Qatar, or you're even looking at the other 31 teams participating, you're looking at Qatar, and you're going, there's a big gap between the other teams we see here and this team, and it's just not the case. If you're doing a power rankings, are they near the bottom? Absolutely. They're probably 31 or 32. But again, this is the 49th ranked team in the world, according to FIFA's official rankings. They are absolutely, from a talent standpoint, in line with every other team qualifying for the World Cup. The question is, and they have proven that by consistently beating the teams they should. If there is one thing this team has done well, it is that. Once you get past the Asian Cup, they have really struggled against the higher quality opposition they've played. Haven't won a single game against another team coming into this World Cup since that triumph in 2019. There were some close games in there, a few. None of them were horrific blowouts. But that's what we're going to learn here. That is the big question. Right, we're not going through a qualifying where you have to be in the top whatever percentage of a large group of teams. You are now going to be playing teams with more talent than you all three games of the group stage. What does that look like? Can Qatar hang? And not only can Qatar hang, because I believe that answer is yes. Can Qatar actually get the points needed to get out of the group stage? Can they win one of these games? Because if they win one, that changes the complexion of the entire group. And if you win a game in the World Cup group stage, you got a chance of going through. You're keeping yourselves alive at least through that third game. So what we need to do here is we need to detach any assumptions we may have about the Qatar team from an on-field perspective and understand this is another team that has less talent than almost any other team at this tournament, but is very much in line with some of the other teams that are going to be participating. They're the kind of team that gets in because each continent, each qualifying region, is allotted a certain amount of teams. It's the same idea with the NCAA tournament, right? It's not the best 64 or the best 68 teams. It's the best teams plus the best teams from all of these different conferences. Qatar is the equivalent of a 13-14 seed, I would argue. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Not a 16, not a 15. Not good enough to be a 12. Somewhere in that 13-14 range, where you're not gonna bet on them. They don't typically get to a Sweet 16. But is it out of the realm of possibility they pull off that upset, beat Senegal or something, and all of a sudden it's a different conversation? Not at all. That is an absolute possibility that needs to be entertained. This team deserves that much respect based on what they've done over these past 3 to 4 years getting ready for this tournament. Now the question is, what do you do when the lights are on you? How much does that home support matter? Because again, the context of this home field advantage is a little bit different for a variety of reasons. So we'll see how they deal with it. This is a different level. It's not clear whether they can match up, but disregard this team at your own peril. That's the way I will end this. I fully expect they're going to prove they belong at this tournament. Anything other than that would be icing on the cake and added bonus pleasant surprise. Be sure to stay tuned and subscribe on this very YouTube channel for the rest of the World Cup previews that are coming between now and the start of the tournament. We'll be doing one for all 32 teams. And if you haven't already gone and watched them, go back, look at the previews for the Netherlands and Ecuador, those other two teams in Group A. We're just going group by group in alphabetical order. So Senegal will be up next to close out Group A. Be on the lookout for that.